sorry. Your turn to using this one. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we do roll call, please?
Excuse me. Roxanne Steffens. Rudy Beecham. Colin Kosmicki.
Here.
Scott Friels.
Here.
Leslie Jordan.
Here.
And Ignacio Velasquez.
Here.
So absent, Roland Resendiz. Rudy Pichet. Don Sanger.
If I could interject, Ms. Bennett, so, Rudy Pichet is the alternate for Councilmember Resendez and will be a few minutes late. And then or Supervisor Zanger is an alternate, and since we have both members of the Board of Supervisors, is not required to be as a member of the committee, but can be as a member.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. So let's move on to verification of agenda posting.
If you're approved.
No second, Anthony say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And let's do an approval of the minutes. Any questions about the minutes or can we move to approve?
Move to approve.
Second. Everyone say aye. Would you agree? Aye. Okay, so let's move on to item number 6. We're going to go to public input for items not on the agenda. So this is a time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of this committee. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to staff before speaking. When the minutes clerk calls your name, please come up to the podium, state your name and city for the record and speak to the committee. If you are joining us by Zoom, please click on the bottom of your screen to raise your hand. If you are joining us by Zoom using the cell phone, please press 9. Each speaker will be limited to up to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the committee from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do you have any speaker cards or anyone on Zoom?
No speakers.
Okay, thank you. So I'll close that. Item, and then we'll move on to item number 7, community business. This is 7.1, Baker Tilly discussion for fire district feasibility study. Recommended action, receive presentation from Baker Tilly on the scope of work for the fire district feasibility study. Discuss and provide any additional direction to staff and contractor. Can we get that staff report?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, we're here at a special meeting to try and get the kickoff of the Baker Tilly feasibility study for the fire district started. The contract was awarded to Baker Tilly, and on Zoom today, we should have Andy Belknap, who is the managing director of the project. Additionally, on Zoom, we have members of his engagement team as well as one of his subject matter experts. They're going to give you a presentation, and then what we ask following the presentation is for you guys to discuss the scope and the process amongst yourselves, and then provide feedback to both the contractor as well as staff so that we can begin the process and moving forward with this feasibility study. With that, I'll turn it over to Andy Knapp, or sorry, Bill Knapp.
Andy, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Andy Belknap with Baker Tilly, and we will introduce ourselves here in a moment. Michelle, you want to go to the first slide?
Actually, I think somebody from the advisory committee is controlling the slides.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is our agenda for the meeting. We'll first introduce everybody on our team. We'll go over the project background and objectives, go over the project approach and the deliverables, talk about our schedule and logistics and the next steps. But the most important part of the meeting will be hearing from you and hearing about your expectation and your objectives. So the next slide, please. So let us introduce ourselves first, and then if we could hear from the committee members, it would be great. I'm Andy Belknap, Managing Director with Baker Tilly. I have over 20 years of experience in local government as a city manager, public works director, and finance director. I've been consulting with local governments for over 15 years, and I've worked with something like 300 local governments, mostly within the Western United States, but at least 300 local governments within California. Michelle.
Hi there, my name is Michelle New. I am the project manager on this project. I've been with Baker Tilly and prior to that, Management Partners for about 4 years, 4.5 years. And prior to that, I served in the city of Santa Maria, which is on the Central Coast, for 15 years as an analyst in the city manager's office, as well as the human resources manager. I've worked on a whole host of different projects, and I'm very excited to be serving on this one. We have 2 other members of our team today. Steve Montano and Tyler Schneck were not able to be here today. It was a change of times. However, Ned, if you could introduce yourself and then turn it over to Deshay, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you, Michelle. I'm Ned Pettis Jr. I'm here in the suburb of Columbus, Ohio. I served 35 years on the Columbus Fire Department, the last 10 as the fire chief, and then I served 5 years as the safety director over police, fire, 911, and support services. I led the Columbus Division of Fire to being accredited. It was the 3rd of the 25 largest cities in America to achieve accreditation. We also received an ISO rating of 1. I served 6 years on the board of directors of the National Fire Protection Association, and I'm the past president of the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs Association. I'm delighted to be a part of the team. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Deshay Wise. I'm a consultant with Baker Tilly. I'm originally from Oregon, currently living in Houston, Texas. On this project, I'll be doing a lot of analysis and support, helping create project deliverables, synthesizing information, creating reports, and supporting the team. So excited to work with you all.
Might be a good opportunity to have the committee members just introduce yourselves.
Good morning. I'm Ignacio Velasquez, County Supervisor for San Diego County, District 5. I do have a few things I'd like to say up front. We started this direction of trying to get information. Yeah, I just wanted to just kind of put on quick. But I don't think we're going to be going in that direction any longer, so I'm going to have a question about this real soon here.
This is Colin Vesky, County Supervisor.
Roxanne Stevens, Mayor of the City of Hollister.
Leslie Jordan, Mayor, City of San Luis.
Rudy Boucher, Hollister City Council, District 1. Scott Friel, Settlement, Houston City Council.
Okay, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and just hear the presentation, and then afterwards, we'll have the comments. Yeah, well, everybody will have a chance. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Want to go to the next slide now? So in terms of the project background and objectives, this just talks about sort of how we are intending to step through. We're going to this in more detail in some other slides. But we wanted to first sort of identify the current system and how things are currently being done and identify the current landscape for fire service delivery. We then want to take a fairly broad role of looking at what success looks like for the 3 jurisdictions in terms of fire services. Then we would like to identify what are the various alternatives for looking at different types of service delivery that might be possible in the area. And there are a number of different approaches that might be taken. Then review the feasibility of each of the various options that exist for regional service delivery, and then develop a implementation plan and develop recommendations for getting from where we are now to a new service delivery mechanism, which will be designed to be regional in scope. And I would say that this is clearly the way fire service is evolving across the state, is to become more regional than just one city or jurisdiction. It's clearly moving in a more regional direction. Next slide, please. So we're really interested in what will success look like for the advisory committee and the success for each of the individual jurisdictions. Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you. Before we go to the next slide, does anyone want to speak to this question that we have here, what success looks like for the Fire Protection Advisory Committee? Any of the committee members, that is, the elected officials or staff?
Anybody? Yes, so just go ahead and continue. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing. Did you say to go to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next several slides are regarding the project approach. Andy touched on this a bit, but we'll go on to a little bit more detail here. The first phase, well, let me step back. Based on the proposal, what we saw in the RFP and our response in the proposal, and then discussions with staff in the last 2 weeks as we've geared up for this, we've developed a work plan and a tentative schedule for this project. And here in this slide, we'll discuss the phased approach, and then we'll touch on the timeline after. So the first phase is the project planning and management phase. That's really where we are today. This is essentially the efforts of our project team and the organization's project team to ensure we're aligned and understand how the project approach will take place. We do want to make sure that we're aligned with regard to the major steps, the logistics, and then as far as the timeline goes as well. So we did have some planning discussions with the 3 organizations prior to today, but today is really the launch of the project, the major kickoff meeting, where we discuss scope, objectives, and timing. The next slide goes into the information gathering phase. This is really the bulk of the project. This involves the key tasks to ensure that our team has a really good understanding of the current state of fire services in the 3 jurisdictions. We do this through a multi-pronged approach. It's a thorough reviewing of the background information. We already submitted a background request to the cities, and I know that the 3 agencies are currently working on that right now. We'll also be conducting a site tour of each of the 4 fire stations and facilitating interviews with each of you, as well as some of the key staff identified. The next slide is conducting the analysis, essentially. So using the information that we've gathered, we conduct our analysis of the fire services of the 3 organizations. So this includes reviewing all of the potential paths forward for the agencies, looking at funding sources, and then also conducting a cost-benefit analysis. Finally, that next slide is the reporting phase. So this is where we prepare our report that comprehensively details our process, our methods, our analysis of the issues, and then outlines each of our recommendations. We'll be working with you and the project team throughout the process, so there shouldn't be any surprises once we get to this reporting phase. We always want to have, we always want to make sure we check ourselves throughout the process, I should say. And we never like our reports to sit on a shelf, so we also build up a draft implementation action plan, and that identifies the action steps for each of the recommendations. We want all of our recommendations to be something that can be implemented, so we provide you with each of the action steps to do that. That goes into the detail of the project approach. Are there any questions about that?
No questions.
Great, thank you. So the next slide, I have a question for you. Is there any additional information, any context, any additional resources that you think will be helpful for us as we begin this engagement? Again, we did provide a background request, an information request to staff, and they're working on that. Anything else from your perspective that might be beneficial for us to understand or to know about before we move forward?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, before we get too far here, I think there's updated information we probably should know or not aware of yet, but the partnership that we've had over the last decade has pretty much come to an end and will not be renewed in after 270 days. So to be quite frank, I don't think spending much more time trying to work towards a district that's going to be fruitful to any of us, because there's too much disagreement on something like that. You need a united team to make it work. So I don't, to be frank, I don't think it's a good use of our time to really pursue the idea of a district any longer, at least at this time.
Thank you, Supervisor Velasquez. Other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Supervisor Kuzmicki, go ahead.
Shot. So yeah, I think, just to piggyback, I think the assumption when we were moving forward with this study, and I've been a big supporter of the track that we were on, finding a reasonable contractual agreement that gets us on this bridge toward a fire district. I believe that would be the best outcome if we could find agreeable terms. And we were under this assumption, however, during, due to the obvious circumstances that we have now, where neither the county nor San Juan are finding agreeable terms, I feel like it's our obligation to iron out this current situation. And for the consultant to have an understanding that, there's a lot of ironing out that needs to occur here, and the county is, the county, we just incidentally came out of both of us are on this budget ad hoc, and the county's facing very daunting challenges this next fiscal year. And we're looking at the likelihood of just taking the fire situation out of the picture. We're looking at the likelihood of some pretty significant reductions. There's a reality that we have that there isn't any more room for the county to go beyond what's been offered with regard to the contract situation. And we obviously just yesterday voted on moving forward with creating our own county fire department due to that. And since, we did that after the city of Hollister essentially reversed course on the agreed upon terms that we had. And so the county is headed in this direction. And I think it's just important to have that context. I think it goes without saying, but just to understand that the county is looking at creating a county fire department, and how that fits into this whole discussion, because this is also new, I don't know. It makes sense to me that we do have to pull back here and take a breather and fully understand the dynamics here because of the situation. And I get where Supervisor Velasquez is coming, because if somebody could lay that out to me, how that might look in the event that the county creates a fire station because we have no other choice, how that might look within the context of a fire district. I just don't know how that would work, because we're going down the road of hiring a fire chief. Starting a department, getting a location, buying equipment. And, all that stuff needs to be part of the mix here as we look at this, whether it's even, feasible for the county to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Cosmicki. Comments or questions from this side of the room? Mayor Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all have to offer. Thank you.
I'm still,
Councilmember Fisher.
well, I'm still hopeful that we can work together. We have 9 months to come to some sort of a consensus. I know the dollars and cents. We're not in total agreement, but to get a whole other fire station going, it's gonna be a Herculean effort. I think that if we put our minds to it, we can still make something happen in 9 months and come together and pool resources. And in so doing, create a solution that will protect our communities.
Thank you, Councilmember Fisher. Mr. Fields?
Thank you.
Councilmember Fisher, Fields?
The original intent of this is to, put this all on target. We're hoping that, the study will show us how we can do that and how we can, pay for it. And, so, I'm looking forward to this, to see what they have to say. We've already spent the money. So let's see what it has to say, and then hopefully said we no longer have to negotiate this stuff. It's, union contracts and buying fire and fixing fire, all the fire district will be responsible for that. That's just the easiest way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields. So I will just give my own perspective on this. First of all, I'm not, just to clarify in terms of the contract itself, and maybe this is a Ms. Maroney question, I'm not sure. Did we already spend the money, or is the money then invoiced as activity moves forward with this contract? Can you clarify that?
I do have our city attorney on the line, via Zoom. So, technically the contract is with San Juan Bautista. So we would have to give it a quick review to see how those terms are. Typically in a consultant contract, it's a not to exceed amount, and then you're being billed for time work. And so there has been some time work, obviously, to get to this point. But as for, if we can, there would be San Juan backing out, or ending the agreement and billing for time served on it. We would have to look at that as with San Juan, since the contract is signed by San Juan.
Okay, yeah, I think that's an important question for us to be able to answer today, because if we are paying for services already rendered, that's one thing, that the contract's already paid for and the dollars already, then that's a different, that's different information. So I think answering that question will be really important, so we can get that answered. And then I'll just say that unfortunately we are at sort of an impasse with a continued regional contract with Hollister being the contractor. Part of the contingency around the contract with both jurisdictions was that we have those two in agreement, so that their contracts other than dollar amounts were the same. So we would be able to staff one contract in one way and another one another way. So there was that contingency. That's part of the reason for, I don't know that we reversed course, however, that's okay. We did that because that was the expectation of the contract moving forward, although we had negotiated with both groups. So we're there now. There's 270 days, as Councilmember Fisher mentioned. There is time to continue working together on this. However, it really is, it still is a contingency that the city of San Juan and the county come to some kind of an agreement so that Hollister can then support that. short of that, then we will continue to move forward, but we do have 270 days. So any other questions or comments before we go into public comment? Any other questions or comment? Go ahead Supervisor Velasquez.
I think, one of the biggest issues about a district is it has to be unified throughout the county. And to get something like this passed on the ballot is extremely difficult. And what we're seeing right now is consistent attacks on social media by certain groups attacking the whole fire discussions. That is going to lead to a failure in the vote of people because they're not going to have confidence. And it's unfortunate to see consistent misinformation being spread by people that want one thing in their favor. And it hurts all of us. That I'm all for. I've been pushing for a district for so long, but I know how it works at the voting booth and politics, and I can tell you that there's so much misinformation out there. The public is just of all of it. They're ignoring it, and they will not support the idea of having to pay more in taxes for more dysfunction. It's just, again, it's disappointing to me. It's something I've hoped for years and years and years, but I'm going to be upfront about it and say, what happened here? The rhetoric that's been going around, profanity being used, describing elected officials. How do you expect voters to ever approve something? It's not going to happen, unfortunately. Maybe in a few years down the road, we can have a discussion. But for me,
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Velasquez. Any other comments or questions before we move to public comment?
I would just like to say that I'm a lot more hopeful than some of my counterparts up here. I think that we can still work through something. One thing that I gotta commend San Juan Bautista for having a town hall, because although Supervisor Velasquez thinks that the public is just, the public sentiment might not be where it needs to be in order to get this passed, and he's probably right. Doing things like what San Juan Bautista did, having fire chief Goulding and other subject matter experts in a room, having a town hall is a very, very good thing to do. I think Hollister could do something like that. The county might do something like that as well. Get public sentiment, dispel some of the rumors and myths that might have been swirling around. And in so doing, possibly bring us closer together inside of 9 months to create a contract that's beneficial for us all and for our constituents. We all have friends that live in the county, even though I serve District 1. You have people that live in the city when you live in the county. We all have mutually beneficial goals. So I keeping things positive might be beneficial as well. But having some town halls in the next 9 months and listening to what the people have to say to answer this question, you may actually, as you're going through and putting effort into the district and gathering your information, take a look at those town halls that have already been conducted.
Thank you, Councilmember Bishop. Supervisor Husband.
Yeah, and all for town halls, as long as the focus is on not only the services, but the reality of the numbers. And I think that's what's been, unfortunately, the numbers really haven't been communicated to the public in a way that allows the public to understand the realities from a budget standpoint. And the city of Hollister has given the county 270 days to start fire department, and that's the way we happy with that, because we've had a deal on the table. The ad hocs agreed to it. The majority of the city council agreed to the deal in principle, and did reverse course on that. So I beg to differ respectfully on the sentiment, because there was a deal and the city was reverse course. We still have terms that the county is agreeable to, but as far as I'm concerned, at this point, we're shifting our focus to creating the fire station because we have no other choice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Husband. Any questions, any other questions from the staff room? Can I just check in to see, did we get that question answered about whether this contract we already paid for it, or is it invoice per activity, like where are we at with that?
We're working on getting the actual contract as was stated before, the contracts with San Juan Bautista. So we're working on getting the actual contract so that the attorney can look at the language of the contract. We have not got the answer yet.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move to public comment, and then I will ask if we can get that before we do anything moving forward. Is that okay, or is there another comment?
No, I was just gonna say, they're in the middle of, I believe they're still in the middle of their presentation.
Okay.
There's
Oh, sorry
there-
about that. You're right, they are. Okay.
There's a couple more slides, but based on the feedback we're hearing, maybe it makes sense to stop at this point.
Okay, so let's.
I'd like to hear.
Okay, can you just indulge us, even though
Sure.
maybe that might be the case, can you just indulge us? It sounds like there's just a few more slides, so let's just go ahead and hear the rest of it. I think especially for some of us that are new, it might just be good information for us to know anyway. So, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you.
Of course, yes. Like I said, it's just a couple last slides before we wrap up. So in front here is the tentative project schedule. As was mentioned, we do not have an executed contract at this point. We've been working with staff over the last week to get that moving forward. So this schedule is contingent on finalizing that contract. We wouldn't be able to move forward with any other activities until that was executed if it was decided to move forward. Starting with the end in mind, we anticipate having our report to you in June, and then you can see the major phases of each of the activities here on the PowerPoint. Activity 2 is really quite lengthy. That's where we're gathering our information and then doing the analysis of that. Really, they do overlap, especially activity 2 and 3, and then 4, we kind of are doing multiple pieces of the puzzle at the same time. But the bulk of our work really is in gathering the information and then analyzing it. We would anticipate that the major stakeholder touch points would be in the April, early May timeframe, again, dependent on the contract and getting that executed. And then we would identify the logistics, identify dates and times for site visits and interviews when we have a contract in place, if we do move forward with that. The next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Deshay. Oh, I'm sorry, questions first, if there's any other questions. Okay, then the next slide, I'll turn it over to Deshay.
Yes, so this information request was submitted to staff last week, and we're in the midst of compiling that information. This information is helpful for our initial understanding and the analysis phase of the project, and sets us up for those key and upcoming tasks. On the next slide, that goes over highlighting some of our key next steps. We're working with Roy, with San Juan Bautista to finalize that contract. And once we do that, we'll be coordinating logistics for next steps, including our site visit, as Michelle mentioned.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, thanks for indulging us. Do we have an answer to that question? Yeah.
So obviously some things have changed
Right.
since we started on this. We'll work with staff on dealing with the changes that have come up, and obviously we'll work with them in good faith on dealing with the changes, either changing the scope or terminating the contract or whatever needs to be done.
Okay, thank you for that.
So Mayor, we just received this forwarded over to our attorney who's on Zoom, so she probably is downloading it from her inbox as we speak.
Okay, so I think then I will go ahead and go into public comment, and then after public comment, then maybe she can speak to that.
Yes, and if she needs a little time and there's the presentations, then we can always take a short recess.
Okay. I think the reason that I want to make sure that we know this is because I think it's going to be really clear that if we have already paid for this, then we want to make sure the public is aware, whether if we choose not to proceed, that the money's already been spent. If the money has not been spent, then we need to know that as well, right? I think that's important both ways, and I think that will inform not only our decision, but more importantly, inform the public about how we're spending the dollars. The other piece of it is going to be, this will be after we get the turned on, is I wanna understand like how if the money was spent, like how was it broken down among the jurisdictions as well? So that'll be like a follow-up question. But I'm gonna stop talking for a minute and turn it over to public comment. Do you have any speaker cards or anybody on Zoom?
No public comments.
Okay, then I'm gonna end public comment. And so do we need to take a break before we can get that question answered?
It might be a good idea.
Okay, let's,
Mary probably just got it. I mean, I sent it 2 minutes ago, so.
okay.
Yeah, I did. I did just receive it, Mayor, and under paragraph 3, compensation for services, I'll just read that.
Okay,
In consideration for contractor's performance, which is Baker Tilly, the committee shall pay compensation to the contractor upon satisfactory completion of each phase of the project, according to the terms and in the amount specified in attachment B. So then going to attachment B. Hold on one second here. The cost estimate. So phase 1, starting the project, is $5,000. I don't know if Baker Tilly's yet invoiced for that. There's certain timelines for paying the invoices upon receipt of those. But it looks like phase 1, start the project, $5,000. Phase 2, gather information, $38,000. Phase 3, conduct analysis, $25,000. Report results is phase 4, along with providing recommendations, $28,000. Phase 5, support implementation, $3,000, for a total of $99,000. So it is on a per phase completion basis that the payments would need to be made. I can look at what cancellation of the contract would look like.
I can say, to answer your question, we have not billed anything. As we mentioned, we have not officially executed this contract. We're in the middle of that process with Roy from San Juan Bautista. The project team asked that we attend this launch meeting. So we have essentially completed all of that first activity, the start project. But we are not yet under contract, so we have not billed for anything.
So, okay, that's good to know. Had you been under contract, the termination provision is paragraph 10, and it states the committee may at any time for any reason without cause or penalty suspend or terminate the contract or any portion thereof by serving upon contractor at least 30 days prior written notice. And then upon receipt of that notice, Baker Tilly needs to immediately cease all services. But since it hasn't been executed, I can't speak for Baker Tilly. I don't know if each of the 2 cities in the county have also executed the agreement and it's now only sitting with Baker Tilly. But regardless, if you have an executed contract, it's 30 days written notice.
Okay, thank you for that.
Maybe I could add a little
Sure, go
clarity.
ahead.
So I believe I know the action of the city of Hollister, and I believe the county took similar action, was a reimbursement agreement. So the contract would be with the city of San Juan Bautista. We had a 45-10 split. So as the expenses were incurred by San Juan, they would bill us accordingly, and then we would reimburse. And so that's how that would work. We don't have an agreement for that. I do have direction, and that's within my spending authority. So that's why we didn't bring, at least at the city council, an item back. They would invoice us and we would provide that. So I can't speak to the mechanics of how the county would do their reimbursement, but also just like to point out, that although Mary's given an analysis quickly over Zoom, he's also not San Juan's attorney as well. So
Yeah, thank you for that. And obviously not county council, so.
yes.
Yeah. And city manager, Hollister city manager, just a quick clarification about the 45-10 split. So is this regardless of the activity? So if, for example, because here's my question, since Hollister is the fire department, right? Even though to date we're serving the whole county, right? It is the Hollister Fire Department. Is it possible that through this contract, because we're kind of the central person with all the information, that may be needed for this feasibility study, would that 45-45 split still come into play, or is it possible that Hollister would be required to pay more because we're engaging in more activity? I'm not sure, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe this was done probably prior to when you were in office, Mayor, we had agreed 45-45-10. Inherently, the city will have a lot of work on their hands just because we're the keeper of the fire data and then a lot of the financial data. In a district study, they're gonna ask a lot of questions about finance data, how we're paying for things, budgets, those types of things, and how the county is and how San Juan is. So when they ask the county in San Juan, they will be able to show, well, we get a bill quarterly, this is how we do it. Whereas with us, we're going through all of our line item budgets and all of that. So typically what you'll see is a large request of data on the finance side and a large request of data on the actual fire call data, which is inherently all in the fire department. So we had already agreed on those splits. So anything that's billed, we would just do 45.
Right, but it's taking up the chief's time, it's taking up our fiscal department's time, it's taking up manpower that we have in the city, even though we're still paying the same amount, it's still consuming our city's staff time in order to do those activities, is what I'm understanding.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, so that is a concern, because if we do move forward with this, and at the end, if there is some worry about whether or not we can even like execute this, or we can be successful in this, then we will have invested a ton of staff time. That worries me a bit. The other thing, having just kind of to the point of Supervisor Cosmic and Supervisor Velasquez, is I think the expectation of this feasibility study is that we are all in this together. And if right now, especially Hollister and the county are 45-45 in this, if there is a sense that we're not in this together, then I don't know how this is feasible either. And you know, not to pun, but I mean, I don't know how this is not necessarily how we can move forward if we don't have like all the partners involved. That's my only concern on this. We would have to be all in this together. This is another thing that I think is possible for the future. Maybe another question, this may be for the chief. If an individual jurisdiction, like one of the cities or the county, decided to form their own fire district, they could at a later date do that on their own without involving the entire region. Is that true or not true? Or do we have to do this as the county in its entirety?
No, you don't have to do this as the entire county. You could, the city of Hollister could decide to form a fire district. My opinion is it's the greatest benefit to the members of the county, the citizens of the county, to do it together. I think that's why we started pursuing this to begin with. But there is no requirement that says that the three jurisdictions have to do it together. Any one of the individual jurisdictions or any combination of the three jurisdictions could move forward with this on their own. But like I said, I think the benefit to the citizens of San Bernardino County is doing it as a group together.
You know, with any district process, I mean, that's what you go through. You could draw, you don't have to draw around the whole city or the whole county. That's what the study is, right? You give those parameters and they look at it. So technically, I mean, it's you're drawing the map of what that boundary is, and then there's the whole process that you go through.
Okay, and the reason I asked that question is just simply because if all three of us aren't going to move forward on this together, there's nothing that precludes any individual jurisdiction if it benefits their jurisdiction and their citizens to move forward with that. And so I just wanted to make sure that we all we had that information, because if we want to do it, we can still do it if it makes sense for our jurisdictions. I think we're all worried about our budgets. We're all worried about the fire services. We're going to have to figure this out for our jurisdiction, and that includes the possibility of maybe a district for their own jurisdiction. So anyway, any other questions or comments from either side of the dice?
I've got a question. So if one,
Supervisor Boucher, I'm gonna recognize Councilmember Shannon, recognize Supervisor Cosmic because he spoke first. Sorry about that. So we're just gonna do this. So I'm gonna recognize Supervisor Cosmic first, and then I apologize for that.
Yeah, I mean, just considering we're going toward creating a fire department, I think it's in our best interest to have a conversation at the board level about whether there's interest in moving ahead.
See you speak more.
Oh,
I'm not sure if the mic-
Yeah,
I can't hear you on
yeah,
Zoom.
appreciate that. Yeah, no, just considering the county is headed toward creating a fire department, I think we're gonna have to have a discussion with our board to decide on whether it makes sense to continue moving forward with the study.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Cosmin. Okay, Councilmember Boucher, please go ahead.
I just had a follow-up question for the chief. So one of the three jurisdictions did create its own district. Is there anything that would keep the other two from being brought in at some future date? I mean, you know, redrawing the lines and service boundaries or anything else? Anything that would preclude that opportunity?
No, but it's more steps, right? You're not necessarily just going to create the fire district. Let's say San Juan Bautista created a fire district and then the county wanted to join in or vice versa. You have to go through the LAFCO process. There's a whole process to go through. So, doing it all at once makes it the cleanest way, but there's nothing that says down the line a group couldn't be added to it. It just complicates the process.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so I will then, I think we need to give direction, for staff and contractor how to move forward. At this stage, we don't have a contract, so there's not really, it sounds like we do not have a contract, so it sounds like there really isn't anything to vote on related to whether we move forward with a contract. So I just want, what direction would any members of this committee like to put forward publicly, and then we can all either give a thumbs up or we can say we agree or we disagree. So any side of the Supervisor Velasquez, go ahead.
I think at this point, we probably should be suspending this until the clarification. Supervisor Cosmin said, we have to go back to our board, see what direction they want to go, if they want to continue or not. And maybe the other boards can do the same. On this side.
Thank you.
I'm curious, is the county supervisor already approved this, they budget for 45%? They did, but so at the time, we thought we were all gonna be working as partners together and stuff. And at this point, it's clear we have to create our own fire department. So
Well, that's not clear, that's a little muddled, but, that's what the intent of this feasibility study is. Creating a fire department, and none of us has to deal with that. After it's created, we won't be in business anymore. Does everybody, you all understand that? Is that?
That is what I understand, yes.
yeah, let me maybe I clarify this. It's not muddled. We got a 270-day notice saying in 270 days, we're not gonna have fire service, and we cannot wait around for that. We have to move, create our own fire department or contract with someone else. So we don't have time to wait and think about what we're gonna do. And as I said, what really concerns me the most is all the misinformation being spread around through social media, which is gonna lead to a failure of the vote.
But without a crystal ball.
Well, we're not.
Okay, so,
You're
okay,
right, but
okay,
that's what
okay, gentlemen, I'm gonna just ask. This is what I'm gonna ask, just because I really want to keep this very diplomatic. So I'm gonna ask that if you can address, instead of the comments to each other, can you address it to the public? I would appreciate that, just because I just would like to avoid a back and forth. So let me, so do you have, Supervisor Velasquez, do you need to finish your last comment, and then I'm gonna go to Councilmember Fields. Okay, that's it. Okay, Councilmember Fields, please. Finish your comment.
I feel that all three agencies have already discussed this, they've already approved in their budgets the fee for this study, and a lot of us have worked a long time to get to this point. And to stop now, I think is a huge failure for our residents of this county. I think that we should move forward, see what it says. It's, in my opinion, it's the best move we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment?
I do, you know, I've been a part of a lot of negotiations in my life, and one thing that I realize is that you don't always get everything you want in a negotiation. You get what you need for the people that you represent, and you compromise along the way. You know, looking at the bright side, the negotiation can move forward. We're close to coming to compromise. And we have 9 months to finalize a contract. And in my mind, I mean, call me a rookie, but finalizing a contract is significantly easier than building a fire station, buying fire trucks, finding qualified fire personnel, and getting a fire chief, and doing all that is necessary to create its own fire department to serve 1,380 square miles. We have willing participants. We don't agree on everything. We're not going to get everything that we want. The goal is to provide a service to our county, to our city of Hollister, to the beautiful city of San Juan Bautista. And let's not forget that it's not about us, it's about the community. So I just want to make sure that that gets mentioned too.
Thank you. Mayor Whitman?
Thank you. Great words, both of you. I appreciate them. We have worked very hard at getting to the point that we are now. And I must have missed something in yesterday's meeting where the board as a whole decided to move forward with a fire district on their own. We have 265-ish days left to go forward with negotiations where all parties can come together and figure this out. And in the meantime, in the background, having Baker Tilly move forward with this will actually help us in the long run. We will get information from all the jurisdictions on where we are, and perhaps some of that information can help us move forward with a goal to for our negotiations. So I am all in favor of keeping going with this, regardless of our negotiations. And again, we have a little less than 270 days to work together. And these guys can work in the background.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Jordan. So I will just say that my concern about moving forward is that we invest a lot of our staff time, all the city culture staff time, and we have clearly some concerns about the partnership. So if we are, or if we're not able to move together, the three jurisdictions, and then the city of Hollister again is the one that can hold all the information and has to get the chief off of whatever day-to-day duties he has to do to get the information, have our city manager, we'll have a fiscal people having to do all this work that ultimately will not lead to us being able to work together because there are some concerns. So that is what my concern is. I appreciate the words that the three of you on this side of the guy said. However, I think that we have to represent our individual jurisdictions, and that's what we're doing. So even if we disagree with members of the county board of supervisors, that we're representing our jurisdictions. It is, I think they may need to just go back and check in. That's what I'm hearing from them. So I think ultimately we all are going to vote for what we believe is right for our jurisdictions. I think that's the concern. We have to be able to move forward on this. City manager.
I just wanted to point out, it looks like our city attorney has her hand raised on Zoom. So.
Okay, sorry about. Okay, so the city attorney, I'm going to recognize Supervisor Kosmicki, and then I'll go to you. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Just to clarify, we're not looking at creating a fire district. Oh, sorry, just to clarify, we're not looking at we're not creating a fire district. We voted on creating a fire department. And there's a lot of talk about negotiations that I'm hearing, from the county side, we're done with negotiations, we've completed negotiations. We've stretched our budget as far as we can. I don't think that's quite sinking in yet, it sounds like. We had agreed upon terms. Apparently, we no longer have agreed upon terms, and we're focused on creating a fire department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney, Mary Meredith, that's Hollister.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out as the city attorney for Hollister, that Hollister Council gave direction while there's a 270-day termination notice, that the direction was to bring back a 90-day timeline to work out any agreement. And that will be that proposal F, I'm going to call it, because that's the option council gave direction for, will be coming back before council on April 7. And then I know that there was rejection or even counteroffers, which is a form of rejection of the contract proposals that the city put forward. So just wanted to point that out because I know that there's a discussion regarding the 270 days. And so just wanted to remind you, Mayor, that the council gave direction to bring back that 90-day clause.
Thank you for that reminder, and also just to elaborate a little bit, the reason for that is that if we, in the event that there was not agreed upon terms among the three parties, then we would need time to plan how we're going to move forward. So that's part of that. But ultimately, the other thing that I just remind everybody is that the contingency from the city of Hollister is that the city of San Juan Bautista and the county of San Fernando agree. So that's a major part of this contract moving forward. So I just want to put that out there. Okay, so I think that we kind of like said what we all, where we're coming from, and I would just like to ask for somebody to propose direction, how to move forward with this, and then we can each agree or disagree, and we can do like a roll call, agree or disagree.
I
Go ahead, Mary.
suggest that we move forward with David Tiller.
Okay. Councilman, is everyone, Councilmember Fields,
I agree.
and Councilman Bishop,
Heather,
I disagree. Supervisor Barnett.
Yeah, at this point, we have to suspend this. We need further clarification of the county of the implications of what we're going to fire department. Thank you.
Supervisor Velasquez.
So I go ahead to suspend the clarification.
Okay, so then the direction, then should we do another like suggestion for direction and then vote, or? I mean, ultimately, it's clear that ultimately, my main concern, as I said, is I don't know how we move forward if we don't have the three partners involved, and we're worried that we're gonna spend a lot of staff time. That's my concern,
So Mayor, if I could, Dave, if I could, it sounds as if that this is an advisory body, and the the recommendations were given to each of your respective bodies. So really the decision-making authority now lies with the different respective bodies. And so I don't know if any direction you give now is going to, I think at this point, I'm going to recommend that the city of Hollister take it back to their council for formal action, because that's where the action can take place.
Okay, thank you for that. So we are giving a recommendation, so I think that is probably good advice. Thank you for that. So Councilman, I appreciate that. With that, I think we should be giving the advice of our city attorney and agree with that to our council. Okay. Other questions or comments from you guys? Okay, so I think I'm gonna move on then from that, and we will go on to committee reports. So 6.1, any committee member reports? Mayor Jordan?
I just thank David Tiller for coming here today and listening to this. And I have no further comments.
Yes, thank you for that. Any committee reports from this side of the room?
Just
Supervisor Velasquez.
Board of Supervisors voted to move in the direction of creating their own fire department. And we're going to be aggressively moving towards that. See what we can do together. Hopefully together we can still do something, but we have to, as you said earlier, we have to start moving on this. There's not a lot of time. And our budget is very limited as for us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Committee reports from any of other members? No. No. Okay.
I just want,
Go ahead, Councilman. Chris.
just as far as the negotiation goes, we originally negotiated last year a contract and our council approved it, and then just recently we were handed another contract that myself and Jordan had no idea what was on it. And we had a couple days to read it, and it was not, we did not negotiate that contract. So there was no way that we can actually approve a contract that we did not negotiate. And we didn't even have to expect the financials, we received it reported. So that's one of the reasons that we rejected the contract. None of us were in it. We had. None of us were in it. Our city manager wasn't there. We didn't do that. So. That is always the fire chief. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna again reiterate as we move forward for the next 90 days that the contingency on the contracts is at the 2 or 3, and so that's just taking the city of Hollister. So any other?
Yeah, Madam
Go
Chair,
ahead.
just want to clarify, the county had, not negotiating anything with regard to San Juan Bautista, that's between San Juan and Hollister. And, just to remind everybody that the county wasn't in discussions with San Juan and Hollister. Never came to an agreement.
Yes, thank you for that. Okay. Let's go to the chief's report.
I don't necessarily have any additional report. I just, as the fire chief for all 3 jurisdictions, want to encourage all 3 jurisdictions. I know the situation the county's in, and San Juan. I just want to encourage everybody. I would like to continue communications even as you explore your other options. Because as I stated before, I think that it's in the best interest of all 3 jurisdictions for us to continue to work together. I am open to considering continuing conversations, discussing our fire service. So I just want to encourage all 3 jurisdictions to keep an open mind about continuing these conversations, because I do think it's in the best interest of the county residents, all of the county residents, for us to continue to work together.
Okay, so let's move on to future agenda items. We don't have anything listed. Does anybody have any future agenda items?
I do, and I want to make sure.
President Velasquez?
Chief, you're absolutely correct. I want to make sure we, if we can, the next meeting, just a quarterly report of the calls, call volumes, hotspots, types of calls, so we're all moving familiar with what's going on for a station.
Yeah, we do a biannual report, and my biannual report is almost completed. So it should be ready for the next meeting. Unfortunately, in the last few weeks, I've been busy doing other stuff. So I got a little bit behind on that, and we're at budget time, but I am pretty close to being done with the biannual report, which this next biannual report actually includes the entire 2024.
So this is back in the past, we've had a report to every other meeting or reporter. You know, your staff, you pull that up pretty quick. So that you can report back on it.
Yeah, we have it's a pretty extensive report. The last 2 have been pretty extensive. We are very limited on staff, so I take on the bulk. Staff does help. I take on the bulk of that. Like I said, it is nearly completed. It's just not fully completed yet. And we were focusing on the Baker Tilly presentation today. But my intention was to have it ready for the next fire advisory committee meeting.
And I would request an item that gives us latest overview from the budget standpoint, and some historical numbers as far as where the budget has gone since this arrangement started, along with staffing and personnel. The personnel numbers when this arrangement started to the personnel numbers where we're at now, along with this presentation.
Yeah, there is some complication in that we can work towards that. As you may be aware, we're looking into, there was possibly some costs placed on the fire department that shouldn't have been. So we're working through some of those details right now. So I can bring
I'm
back,
just talking about overall budget department numbers, so now I know the number 16.3, that I believe it was around 5 million when it started, I just would like to see
yeah, we can bring back,
discussion about the budget, because the budget is widely packed. The common coming to agreement, at least part of it, at least part of the discussion, and we at the county have, as you're aware, have never, as long as I've been on the board, we've never actually gotten a budget breakdown. We've never had any say on whether we should or shouldn't have positions or anything, so it's actually contractual, it's actually a contractual obligation to give that presentation. I think whether it's here or at the county, I think it would be good to have that public discussion as soon as possible.
yeah, I can bring back budget numbers.
Very appreciated.
Thank you for those two requests. Any, future agenda items from this one? Okay. Okay, so we have those two items that we should have for the next meeting, and, there's nothing else, then I will move to adjourn. So anything else, we'll just adjourn. Okay, not seeing anything, so we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone.